Skuld is probably the one character in Union Cross who fans may have the most questions about, save for perhaps the Master of Masters, whose real name we still don't actually know. And this is especially because her whereabouts are still relatively unknown by the end of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, Kingdom Hearts Dark Road, and Kingdom Hearts 3 compared to the other Union leaders. But while we have a few hints that kind of point to where and when Skuld ends up in the Kingdom Hearts story, her future in the overall series is still quite a mystery and may not be resolved until we're deep into the Lost Master arc. Welcome back, y'all. This is your girl Empowered News, and today we're going to talk about Skuld, where and when exactly she might be in the Kingdom Hearts story, and how her future could look as we go both into Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and the Lost Master arc, starting with Kingdom Hearts 4. So regarding Skuld, I think what we're seeing is a less is more approach in the sense that because we don't know much about Skuld as far as her fate from Union Cross and where she might have ended up, this could mean that Skuld is being set up to be really important later, either for the events that took place in Skuld Asylum during Missing Link or even further down the line in the Lost Master arc. I think that one of the most straightforward theories out there about Skuld's fate is that she is in fact one of the main characters in Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. In fact, it's already been alluded to that Skuld is somehow related to, or may even be, the woman who gave away baby Xehanort to the elder player for them to be Xehanort's caretaker. Xehanort even referred to the girl in his dreams looking just like his mom at the end of Dark Road. However, director Nomura pretty much deconfirmed that Xehanort's mom is in fact Skuld in a Q&A session after Dark Road's finale released in August of 2022. But he did say that Xehanort's mom was related to Skuld in some way. So right out the gate, it seems that Skuld has simply landed in the version of Skuld Asylum that existed during the Missing Link era and is a fairly close relative of Xehanort's. However, while it's not out of the realm of possibility that Skuld did land in Skuld at some point during the Missing Link era, it is a bit strange that we didn't see her arrival at the end of Union Cross along with everyone else's locations. And we actually kind of got to see how Skala started with Ephemer's lifeboat arc malfunctioning and him waking up to a demolished Daybreak Town, along with Brain waking up to a fully functioning Skala about 4 generations in the future. So if Skuld simply arrived in Skala in between Ephemer and Brain's arrival, we probably should have seen that included at the end of Union Cross with everyone else's fates from the lifeboat arcs. Not to mention that Xehanort is also Ephemer's descendant, but is born at least 4 to 5 generations after Ephemer wakes up post Daybreak Town. But it seems that Ephemer wakes up by himself in this area, so again, it doesn't seem like Skuld was around with Ephemer after Daybreak Town was destroyed and the lifeboat arcs disappeared into a different time, or in Ephemer's case, malfunction. And with who we now know as Xehanort's mom looking a lot like Skuld, the signs are pointing to a possibility that Skuld is a closer relative to Xehanort than Ephemer was, meaning that Skuld might be as close as Xehanort's grandmother. That said, I do think this is a slight red herring to a somewhat more nuanced answer because we probably would have seen Skuld's arrival occur somewhere in between Ephemer and Brain's arrivals on the Skala Asylum timeline. Additionally, we've gotten what might be a bigger hint that Skuld might have existed at some point during the Missing Link era, but she might have also existed at a later point in the Kingdom Hearts story. The secret reports in Kingdom Hearts 3 might have given the biggest hints as to where else Skuld could have landed either from the lifeboat arc itself or another mechanism that may have been built during the era of Missing Link. The secret reports gathered throughout Kingdom Hearts 3 contain several reports detailing a Subject X who was found in the central square of Radiant Garden, which could be the first or second place that Skuld landed. And further clues about this subject's circumstances, the fact that the subject awoke with amnesia and could only remember 4 friends who were with her and a key, very likely indicate that this subject is Skuld, who was found in Radiant Garden. Additionally, one of the only things this subject uttered was the phrase, "May your heart be your guiding key," which was more commonplace during Skuld's time in Union Cross. So this might not be a situation of either or when it comes to where and when Skuld landed, but rather it could be the case of maybe Skuld landing in both Skala Asylum after Ephemer's lifetime, but before Brain's arrival, and then traveling again into the future during the time a young Terra Xehanort worked with Ansem the Wise in his lab in Radiant Garden. But I guess the question then would be just how did Skuld travel to a different time if her first arrival post Daybreak Town was in fact during the Missing Link era and she might have gotten older during that time? And so I think that one of the secrets surrounding this era of Missing Link revolves around the founders who oversaw Skala at Kylam, specifically who they were and just how much did they know specifically about traveling to other worlds and even the mechanisms of time travel. And if the subject from Ansem the Wise's lab was in fact taken by who we now know as Lushu and placed in a different world or time, could the same thing have happened in Skala at Kylam towards the end of Missing Link that would cause Skuld to disappear once again, but somehow have a lineage that also included Xehanort? And while the theory of Skuld first appearing in Skala at Kylam at some point between Ephemer and Brain's arrivals, and then using some mechanism from Skala to travel again to Radiant Garden in the future and being discovered as Subject X, is a pretty straightforward one, it still doesn't really account for how and why Xehanort's assumed mom looks exactly like an older version of Skuld. Plus, if Skuld is related to Xehanort's mom in some way, like if she's her mother or grandmother, then obviously Skuld wouldn't be the same age that she was at the end of Union Cross. This means that if Skuld made one stop in Skala and one stop in the future, that she wouldn't be the approximately 15-year-old Subject X. So what might actually be the case was that Skuld was in both Skala and Radiant Garden. However, in one of these places, this is actually a replica of Skuld instead of the original Skuld. So based on the main assumptions that there was in fact a mechanism or arc that was kept or rebuilt in Skala at Kylam in the Missing Link era, and with that a lab, and that the founders or someone else in Skala knew about or designed a replica program, Skuld likely landed sometime after Ephemer but before Brain and Skala, and was replicated by a founder. The real Skuld was then sent further into the future where she landed in Radiant Garden and was known there as Subject X, while the replicated version stayed behind during the Missing Link era. So it is quite possible that this replica of Skuld either lived out her life and ended up being the mother of Xehanort's mother, or this replica of Skuld still lived out her life, but is actually Xehanort's mother. And this is assuming that replicas can fully function like their original counterparts as opposed to being animated dolls. And speaking of animated dolls, there is a chance that this whole process of replicating Skuld took a few tries. So what we might be seeing with the older dark-haired woman who looks just like Skuld is a successful replica, and the angelic amber doll that we came across in Kingdom Hearts 3 in the Toy Story world is a corrupted replica that had to be disposed of. And this is also assuming that the real Skuld wasn't really harmed in the process of these replications. But the replica theory could easily place Skuld in at least 2 different places in 2 different eras without her aging. And this would also eliminate the potential confusion of Skuld landing in Radiant Garden first and then being sent back to the Missing Link era of Skala at Kylam. Although I will say that this is probably the more likely alternative theory, and we still don't know why this era is considered missing or lost in the first place. Perhaps this particular era exists closer to the outside of space and time than originally thought, especially because the astral plane exists in this particular era of Skala at Kylam, but we don't see it in what's assumed to be a future Skala in Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. And when looking at Skuld's connections, aside from a version of Xehanort and possibly Lushu, there's a good chance that if Skuld is in fact Subject X, that she's also made connections with others in what can be considered modern day within the Kingdom Hearts timeline. That said, assuming Subject X is Skuld, we know that it was basically Xehanort's heart that likely resonated once he saw her in Ansem's lab. Additionally, there didn't seem to be a lot of documented interaction between Subject X and Ansem the Wise, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does in fact remember her, since his days of experimenting weren't that long ago. So it should be the case that there's a potential connection between Skuld and Ansem the Wise as well. And it could also be the case that if Skuld is in fact Subject X, then she would have 2 additional important connections while she was held in Ansem the Wise's lab, and those connections would be Axel and Saïx, or rather Lee and Isa in their recompleted Somebody form. So I actually think it's these connections that might be the most significant to Skuld when she landed in Radiant Garden. But of course, because of the rules of traveling in the lifeboat arc, their connections still wouldn't be enough to fully bring Skuld back and return her memories, since they weren't around during the days of Union Cross and therefore would not be able to remember her from her past. But going back to Skuld's connection with Brig turned Zipbar turned Lushu, it seems from the secret reports that not much was shared between these 2. And because Luciu from the days of Union Cross mainly observed the Union leaders and only seemed to truly interact with Brain, this likely might not have been enough of a connection to bring Skuld's memories back if Luciu did take her from Ansem's lab. That said, there must be something about Skuld or Subject X that moved Luciu to remove her from Ansem's lab, whether it was to preserve her from the dangers of Ansem and Xehanort's experiments, or hide her away from the Master of Masters, or a greater purpose that might be revealed later in the Lost Master arc. And so going back to Skuld's or Subject X's removal from Ansem the Wise's lab, there's also a chance that where Skuld is now is actually pretty close to where Sora and Strelitzia are when we start Kingdom Hearts 4. Or perhaps Skuld never actually left Luciu's side. While we don't know Skuld's current location, we do know that there was a plan to place what was called the True Dandelion into the future so that they would ensure the survival of light in the future, and perhaps even in a place where light nor darkness normally exists. And because of this purpose, the black box that Luciu holds may come into play as well. It could be the case that perhaps Luciu discovered that the lifeboat arcs were not 100% foolproof, since we actually did see one of the lifeboat arcs, Ephemer's arc, malfunction and not carry Ephemer into the future, but rather kept him safe as Daybreak Town fell apart. So Luciu likely did remove Subject X, who might be Skuld, from Ansem the Wise's lab, but instead of placing her in a random world or realm like Quadratum, for example, he instead placed her in the black box. But while this theory on the surface seems pretty brutal, there may be a lot more to the black box than we've seen so far. We don't actually know what all could fit into the box or whether the box has the ability to expand on the inside. Additionally, the black box could even be a portal that leads to another realm, something akin to a mobile astral plane that connects existence and non-existence. So there is a chance that Skuld may just simply be in the black box as a failsafe, in case the original True Dandelion either didn't make it to their intended destination or something happened to them over time. And it could be the case that the black box holds multiple things or people, which is a concept that I'll explore a bit more in a future video. But for the purposes of this video and perhaps future videos, I do think there's a chance that the black box may be a bit more expansive than we might have originally thought, which is why there is a non-zero chance that Skuld could be resting in there quite comfortably until she's needed. So obviously there's a lot we still don't know about Skuld, and I think both Missing Link and the Lost Master arc may provide a lot of answers for both what she went through in the past leading up to the Lost Master arc, as well as her future and potential purpose. But I want to hear from you, so let me know what you think about Skuld's story and her future purpose in the comments below. If you want to explore some more Kingdom Hearts theories, I'll be linking another Kingdom Hearts theory video here in the end screen. And as always, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video and want to watch more Kingdom Hearts content. And if there's anyone who may have questions about what to expect for the upcoming Kingdom Hearts games, be sure to share this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.